The strange signals came from deep space. At first, Earth scientists thought they were just cosmic noise. But after months of study, they realized something incredible. Intelligent life was trying to communicate. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Horizon, his blue eyes fixed on the massive view screen. It showed a vessel unlike anything humans had ever built. The alien ship was 5 times larger than their own, with strange purple lights pulsing along its hull. "Status report," Miller said, his voice steady despite the tension. Lieutenant Amy Foster checked her console. "All systems normal, Captain. The alien vessel is maintaining position. They're broadcasting the same welcome message on repeat." Miller nodded. 6 months ago, Earth had detected signals from what called itself the Galactic Empire, a federation of over 300 alien species spanning thousands of star systems. Now, humanity was about to meet them face to face. "Open channel," Miller ordered. "This is Captain John Miller of Earth. We come in peace as representatives of humanity." The screen flickered, revealing a tall, thin figure with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Gold markings covered its face. "I am Grand Minister Zaxbor of the Imperial High Council," the alien said, its voice translated through computers. "We welcome Earth to the greater galactic community." Miller felt a small measure of relief. The alien spoke calmly and showed no obvious hostility. Perhaps this would go well after all. The initial meetings seemed promising. The Empire shared information about faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, and energy production. They invited the Earth delegation to visit their diplomatic station. But as days passed, Miller noticed troubling patterns. The aliens always talked down to humans. They referred to Earth as primitive and underdeveloped. When discussing galactic politics, they mentioned vassal species and protectorates. During the 3rd day of talks, Miller's concerns grew stronger. As is customary, Grand Minister Zaxbor explained, new species joined the Empire as probationary members. For the 1st century, Earth will be under the protection and guidance of a senior species. "You mean control," said Maria Lopez, Earth's chief diplomat. "What you're describing sounds more like colonization than partnership." Zaxbor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "This arrangement benefits all. Your species receives protection and technology. The Empire gains a new productive member." "And if we prefer independence?" Miller asked. The room grew cold as Zaxbor stared at him. "Independence is inefficient. The galaxy is dangerous. Isolated species rarely survive." That night, Miller met secretly with his team. Lieutenant Greg Barnes had hacked into the Empire's public database. "Captain, I found records of dozens of species who refused Empire membership," Barnes said, his face grim. "Most are listed as pacified or administratively reorganized." "They conquer anyone who won't join willingly," Lopes whispered. Miller looked at each team member. "We need to warn Earth. The Empire isn't offering friendship. They're demanding submission." 2 days later, the Earth delegation prepared to leave. As Miller said goodbye to Zaxbor, the Grand Minister seemed puzzled. "Your species should reconsider our offer," Zaxbor said. "The Empire's reach is vast. Resistance would be unwise." Miller kept his expression neutral. "We'll bring your proposal to our leaders." As the Horizon pulled away, Miller stared at the massive Imperial ships. Earth had just discovered it wasn't alone in the universe. But instead of finding friends, they had found a power that saw them as nothing more than a resource to control. "Set course for home," Miller ordered. "Maximum speed. We need to prepare." Behind them, the Empire watched, not yet understanding that they had just met the one species in the galaxy who would never accept domination, no matter the cost. The emergency meeting of Earth's united government filled the Grand Chamber with tense voices. On the main screen, a message from the Galactic Empire played on repeat. The alien diplomat's 4 eyes stared coldly as its translated voice delivered the ultimatum. Earth has 30 standard days to accept protected status within the Empire. Failure to comply will result in necessary corrective measures. President Laura Wilson stood at the center of the room, her face showing the weight of the decision before them. Captain Miller's report makes the Empire's intentions clear, she said. They've conquered hundreds of worlds that refuse to submit. Now they expect us to surrender without a fight. Admiral Lisa Carter stepped forward. A veteran of Earth's space forces, her uniform bore the scars of previous conflicts closer to home. Madam President, we need to prepare for war, she said firmly. The Empire may have advanced technology, but their database reveals they've never faced serious resistance. They expect us to be afraid. Aaron Walsh, Chief of Diplomatic Services, shook his head. We can't win a direct conflict with a civilization that spans thousands of worlds. We should negotiate better terms while showing we can be valuable allies. The debate raged for hours. Some counselors wanted immediate surrender to protect Earth from destruction. Others demanded resistance at any cost. In a quiet corner, Intelligence Officer Olivia Daniels studied data recovered from the Empire's systems. What she found disturbed her deeply. There's something everyone needs to see, she announced, interrupting the arguments. The room fell silent as Daniels projected images onto the main screen. They showed planets before and after integration into the Empire. These worlds tried to negotiate better terms, she explained. The Empire responded by targeting their major cities, not to destroy them, but to demonstrate power. Afterward, these species were given worse conditions than initially offered. President Wilson studied the images, her expression hardening. What happens to species that fight back? That's just it, Daniels replied. According to these records, no species has ever mounted significant resistance. Most surrender after the first demonstration of force. Admiral Carter leaned forward. So they've never faced a real war, just intimidation campaigns. Exactly, Daniels confirmed. Their military tactics are designed for shows of force against frightened populations, not prolonged conflict. The president walked slowly around the table, looking at each council member. We have a choice to make, she said. Accept life as servants, or become the first species to truly challenge the Empire. For 3 more days, Earth prepared its response. Military bases worldwide shifted to high alert. Civilian shelters were readied. Scientists worked frantically to adapt captured alien technology. When the 30-day deadline arrived, President Wilson stood before a global audience. Billions watched as she delivered Earth's answer to the waiting Empire representatives. Humanity thanks the Galactic Empire for its offer, she began, her voice steady. However, we must decline. Earth and its colonies will remain independent. We seek peaceful relations with all galactic species, but we will not surrender our sovereignty. The alien diplomat's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in what humans now recognized as surprise. This response is unanticipated, it said. Are you certain your species understands the consequences? President Wilson nodded once. We understand perfectly. We hope the Empire will respect our decision and pursue peaceful cooperation instead. After the transmission ended, she turned to her advisors. How long until they respond? Admiral Carter checked her datapad. Our deep space monitors show multiple Empire vessels already moving toward our solar system. They'll reach Mars orbit in approximately 72 hours. Then we have 3 days to prepare, Wilson said. Let's make them count. Across Earth, humanity began preparing for something the Galactic Empire had never encountered before, a species that preferred fighting to kneeling. The attack came without warning. 5 Empire warships emerged near Mars, their weapons immediately targeting the human colony. Bright beams cut through protective domes and atmosphere generators. Within hours, the Mars colony was in ruins. This is just a demonstration, the Empire commander announced on all frequencies. Submit now or Earth will be next. But instead of surrender, the Empire's attack triggered fury. Emergency broadcasts showed the destruction on Mars where over 10,000 colonists had died. Earth's scattered military forces rushed to defensive positions. Admiral Lisa Carter watched grimly as reports flooded in. The Empire ships were now moving toward Earth. Their technology is generations ahead of ours, her tactical officer reported. Direct confrontation would be suicide. From the back of the command center, Lieutenant Kevin Martinez raised his hand. Only 26 years old, he was the youngest officer on the bridge. "Admiral, I've been studying their attack patterns," he said. "The Empire ships always maintain perfect formation. They fight like a single unit with no individual initiative." Carter nodded. "Go on. What if we don't fight like they expect?" Martinez suggested. "Instead of meeting their formation with our own, we could scatter our ships, attack from multiple angles, retreat, then hit again from somewhere else." Carter considered this. "You're suggesting guerrilla tactics in space?" "Yes, ma'am. They've never faced a species that didn't either surrender or try to match their formations. They don't expect chaos." Within hours, Earth's defense plan changed completely. Instead of gathering for a final stand, humanity's ships dispersed throughout the solar system. Mining vessels were converted to carry explosives. Civilian craft became decoys. When the Empire fleet approached Earth, they found no organized resistance. Their sensors detected only scattered ships fleeing in apparent panic. "Primitive," the Empire commander Drak Tool said with satisfaction. "Prepare the precision strikes on their major cities. Once they see our power, they will surrender." But as the Empire ships entered Earth orbit, chaos erupted. Small human vessels attacked from every direction. Some crashed directly into the larger alien ships. Others fired missiles into engine exhausts. Communication satellites were repurposed to blind Empire sensors with radiation bursts. On Earth, scientists Kate Wilson and Paul Rogers worked frantically in their underground lab. For months, they had studied the alien technology recovered from earlier diplomatic missions. "Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons and large projectiles," Wilson explained, adjusting her equipment. "They've never developed kinetic scatter weapons." Rogers nodded. "Because no one in the Empire fights that way. It's inefficient and primitive. But effective against their specific technology," Wilson added. Above them, the battle raged. Earth lost dozens of ships within the first hour, but the Empire vessels began taking damage too. Their perfect formations broke as they tried to track hundreds of small targets attacking in unpredictable patterns. "This is impossible." Drak Toll raged as another explosion rocked his flagship. "They have no coordination, no strategy." His second-in-command studied the tactical display. "Sir, they're not fighting according to any known military doctrine. Each human vessel appears to be acting independently." Drak Toll couldn't understand. In the Empire, strict hierarchy and coordination were the foundations of military power. This chaotic human resistance made no sense. As the battle entered its second day, 3 Empire ships had been severely damaged. Earth forces had lost over 60% of their vessels, but they continued fighting with undiminished intensity. From her command center, Admiral Carter watched the tactical display. The losses were devastating, but the Empire's advance had stalled. "Send in the next wave," she ordered, "and get Lieutenant Martinez's new weapon systems to the front line." The young officer nodded, his eyes tired but determined. "They still think we'll break, Admiral. They don't understand that for humans, this is just the beginning." On his damaged flagship, Drak Toll made a decision. "Pull back to Mars orbit. We need reinforcements." For the first time in its history, the Galactic Empire had failed to quickly subdue a primitive species. They didn't know yet, but they had just started a very different kind of war. The Empire's retreat to Mars orbit had bought Earth precious time. While Commander Drak Toll waited for reinforcements, humans worked frantically to prepare for the next phase of war. "They'll return with a larger fleet," Admiral Carter told her officers. "We need to be ready." In underground facilities across Earth, factories ran day and night. Every piece of captured alien technology was studied and reverse-engineered. Children learned emergency protocols in schools. Farmers stored food. Everyone prepared for a long conflict. Among the scientists working to defend Earth was Susan Grant, a brilliant engineer who had spent years developing stealth technology. Before the invasion, her work had been considered impractical. Now it was essential. The Empire relies heavily on quantum detection systems, she explained to military officials. They never needed to look for vessels that actively hide. Susan's team had created a special coating for spacecraft that absorbed scanner waves instead of reflecting them. They also developed engines that dispersed heat across large areas, making them nearly invisible to thermal sensors. Their technology is designed to find things that want to be seen, Susan said. In a galaxy where everyone follows rules, no one hides. When the first stealth ships were deployed, they slipped past Empire patrols undetected. Human scouts gathered intelligence on the growing enemy fleet. Saboteurs planted explosives on unguarded Empire supply vessels. On the 4th week of the war, Earth forces captured an Empire officer. The alien was brought to a secure facility for questioning. Admiral Carter and intelligence specialist Ryan Bennett conducted the interview. "Why do you humans resist?" the captured officer asked, genuinely confused. "It makes no logical sense. You cannot win." "We're fighting for our freedom," Carter responded. "We won't live as slaves." The alien's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. But the Empire offers protection, technology, and purpose. All species eventually understand this. Bennett leaned forward. "Have you ever fought a war before? A real war, not just forcing surrender." "I have participated in 17 pacification operations," the officer stated proudly. "But those weren't wars," Bennett pressed. "They were demonstrations of power against species that surrendered quickly." The alien seemed troubled by this distinction. "The purpose of military action is to establish dominance efficiently. Your species fights incorrectly." This information confirmed what Earth's leaders had suspected. The Empire had vast resources and advanced technology, but little experience with determined resistance. Their military was designed for intimidation, not prolonged conflict. Meanwhile, on the Empire command ship, Drak'Tol received disturbing reports from the Psychology Council. A team of alien experts had been studying human behavior and history. "These humans are unlike any species we've encountered," the report stated. "In their history, smaller forces have repeatedly defeated larger ones through adaptation and unconventional tactics. They glorify resistance against overwhelming odds." Drak'Tol dismissed these concerns. "They are primitive and will be overwhelmed by our technology." But as weeks passed, Empire losses mounted. Human stealth ships struck without warning. Ground forces that landed on Earth found themselves fighting endless small battles against hidden enemies who refused decisive engagements. The Empire's Psychology Council continued their studies, growing increasingly alarmed. "Humans exhibit a psychological trait we've never documented before," their updated report stated. "When faced with possible extinction, instead of surrendering to preserve their species, they become more determined to resist. They would rather die fighting than live under control." In her workshop, Susan Grant tested a new weapon designed to disrupt Empire shield systems. Beside her, technicians modified captured alien technology to work with human systems. "We're adapting faster than they can," she told her team. "They expect us to fight by their rules, but we never will." Across the solar system, humanity transformed itself for war. Mining outposts became military bases. Civilian ships became raiders. Everyone found ways to contribute. On his flagship, Drak'Tol received reinforcements, a fleet 3 times larger than the first. "Now we will end this quickly," he declared confidently. But the Empire still didn't understand what they were fighting. Humans weren't just defending their planet. They were fighting for something the Empire had never valued: freedom at any cost. The Empire's retreat to Mars orbit had bought Earth precious time. While Commander Drak'Tol waited for reinforcements, humans worked frantically to prepare for the next phase of war. "They'll return with a larger fleet," Admiral Carter told her officers. We need to be ready. In underground facilities across Earth, factories ran day and night. Every piece of captured alien technology was studied and reverse-engineered. Children learned emergency protocols in schools. Farmers stored food. Everyone prepared for a long conflict. Among the scientists working to defend Earth was Susan Grant, a brilliant engineer who had spent years developing stealth technology. Before the invasion, her work had been considered impractical. Now it was essential. The Empire relies heavily on quantum detection systems, she explained to military officials. They've never needed to look for vessels that actively hide. Susan's team had created a special coating for spacecraft that absorbed scanner waves instead of reflecting them. They also developed engines that dispersed heat across large areas, making them nearly invisible to thermal sensors. Their technology is designed to find things that want to be seen, Susan said. In a galaxy where everyone follows rules, no one hides. When the first stealth ships were deployed, they slipped past Empire patrols undetected. Human scouts gathered intelligence on the growing enemy fleet. Saboteurs planted explosives on unguarded Empire supply vessels. On the fourth week of the war, Earth forces captured an Empire officer. The alien was brought to a secure facility for questioning. Admiral Carter and intelligence specialist Ryan Bennett conducted the interview. "Why do you humans resist?" the captured officer asked, genuinely confused. "It makes no logical sense. You cannot win." "We're fighting for our freedom," Carter responded. "We won't live as slaves." The alien's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "But the Empire offers protection, technology, and purpose. All species eventually understand this." Bennett leaned forward. "Have you ever fought a war before? A real war, not just forcing surrender." "I have participated in 17 pacification operations," the officer stated proudly. "But those weren't wars," Bennett pressed. "They were demonstrations of power against species that surrendered quickly." The alien seemed troubled by this distinction. "The purpose of military action is to establish dominance efficiently. Your species fights incorrectly." This information confirmed what Earth's leaders had suspected. The Empire had vast resources and advanced technology, but little experience with determined resistance. Their military was designed for intimidation, not prolonged conflict. Meanwhile, on the Empire command ship, Drak'Tol received disturbing reports from the Psychology Council. A team of alien experts had been studying human behavior and history. "These humans are unlike any species we've encountered," the report stated. "In their history, smaller forces have repeatedly defeated larger ones through adaptation and unconventional tactics. They glorify resistance against overwhelming odds." Drak'Tol dismissed these concerns. "They are primitive and will be overwhelmed by our technology." But as weeks passed, Empire losses mounted. Human stealth ships struck without warning. Ground forces that landed on Earth found themselves fighting endless small battles against hidden enemies who refused decisive engagements. The sky above Jupiter blazed with light as the massive Empire fleet arrived. 40 warships, each larger than anything humans had ever built, took position around the gas giant. Their weapons charged, preparing to push toward Earth. The largest fleet ever assembled for a single primitive world. Commander Drak'Tol announced proudly to his officers, "We will crush their resistance today." Admiral Carter studied the tactical display, showing the overwhelming Empire force. Earth's defenses had improved over the past months, but they were still outmatched. This would be the defining battle. "All ships, battle positions," she ordered. "Remember the plan. Hit and run. No direct engagements." Earth's fleet of smaller vessels spread throughout Jupiter's complex system of moons. They used the natural cover to hide from Empire scanners. Susan Grant's stealth technology masked their engine signatures, making them nearly invisible until they attacked. As the Empire fleet advanced in perfect formation, the scattered human ships launched their assault. They struck from multiple directions, targeting engines and sensor arrays before disappearing back among the moons. The Grand Council of the Galactic Empire gathered in their circular chamber. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in rising tiers, their faces showing various emotions: fear, anger, confusion. The defeat at Jupiter had shocked the entire empire. "This situation is unprecedented," declared Vex Moore, who had replaced Zaxvor as Grand Minister after the previous failures. "Never has a primitive species caused such damage to Imperial forces." Arguments erupted immediately. Some representatives demanded that the Empire commit its entire military to crush Earth. Others questioned whether the resource-poor planet was worth the cost. "These humans fight without logic or self-preservation," said Minister Krall of the warrior Galatian species. "We should destroy their planet from a safe distance and risk creating martyrs," countered elder packs of the diplomatic Aeonian race. "Other species might see resistance as possible. We should negotiate." The debate raged for days. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was deeply divided. Military leaders insisted that victory was certain with sufficient forces. Scientists and psychologists warned that humans represented an entirely new type of threat. Meanwhile, Earth continued preparing. Humanity had captured enough alien technology to begin building more advanced weapons. The victory at Jupiter had bought precious time. In a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, intelligence analyst Nicole Baker worked with a team that had achieved something remarkable. They had cracked Empire communication codes. "They're arguing among themselves," she reported to Admiral Carter. "Some want to destroy us completely. Others think we're not worth the trouble." Carter nodded. "Can you isolate transmissions from individual Empire worlds?" "Already working on it," Baker replied. "And we found something interesting. Not all species in the Empire are happy with their status. Some have been looking for an opportunity to break away." This information sparked a new strategy. Earth began broadcasting targeted messages to specific Empire worlds, emphasizing humanity's fight for independence and offering alliance. On the occupied world of Teresis, the native six-limbed inhabitants gathered secretly to watch human transmissions. Their species had been protected by the Empire for 3 centuries. "The humans fight as we once did," an elder said quietly, "before we forgot how." Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. The Empire had maintained control partly through the belief that resistance was futile. The human example challenged this fundamental assumption. Earth's military leaders saw opportunity in the Empire's disarray. After months on the defensive, they prepared the first human strikes beyond the solar system. "We've identified 3 key targets," General Ryan Mason explained to Earth's united government. "Supply depots that support Empire military operations. If we can destroy them, we'll delay their next attack." President Wilson considered the risks. This would mean sending forces deep into Empire territory. "Yes," Mason acknowledged. "But our stealth ships can make it, and we need to show them we can hit back." The missions were approved. 3 small strike forces departed Earth, each consisting of 5 ships equipped with Susan Grant's latest stealth technology. The attacks caught the Empire completely by surprise. All 3 depots were destroyed with minimal human casualties. For the first time, Empire citizens on Central worlds felt vulnerable. In the aftermath, something unprecedented happened. Representatives from 7 Empire species secretly contacted Earth, offering information and support. "We've lived under Empire control for generations," explained the emissary from Alteris. "Your resistance gives us hope that freedom is possible." As these new alliances formed, the Empire's unified front continued to fracture. Military commanders demanded more resources to fight humans. Economic ministers worried about the cost. Scientists warned that human ingenuity was allowing them to advance technologically at an alarming rate. Vex Moore struggled to maintain control of the Grand Council. "We cannot allow this precedent. If humans successfully resist, others will follow." But his warnings came too late. The idea of resistance had already spread. The Empire, built on thousands of years of unopposed expansion, faced its first real threat, not just from humans, but from within its own ranks. On Earth, Nicole Baker intercepted a critical transmission. "Admiral," she said urgently, "the Empire has learned about our planned strikes against their core worlds. They've called an emergency session of their highest council." The war had reached a turning point. The next Empire response would determine everything, for Earth and for the galaxy. The Emergency Council of the Galactic Empire met in a sealed chamber. Only the highest leaders of the most powerful species were present. The usual formalities were abandoned as Grand Minister Vex Moore called the meeting to order. "We face a crisis unlike any in our history," he began gravely. "Our intelligence services have confirmed that humans plan attacks against core Empire worlds, not border territories or military installations, but civilian centers." Shock rippled through the assembly. For thousands of years, warfare had followed predictable patterns. Species fought over resources or territory, but always within certain boundaries. The Empire's core worlds had never been threatened. "How could primitives from a single planet reach our core systems?" demanded Commander Drell, the new military leader after Drak'Tol's death. "Their stealth technology has advanced beyond our detection capabilities," admitted the head of Imperial Science. "And they formed alliances with several of our subject worlds. They may have access to faster ships than we realized." The debate quickly became heated. Some leaders demanded immediate, overwhelming force, committing the Empire's entire fleet to Earth's destruction. Others argued for containment strategies to isolate the human threat. As voices grew louder, a figure rose from the back of the chamber. Elder Ixil-Canthi of the ancient Arthean species rarely spoke at council meetings. At over 400 years old, he had witnessed the rise of the current Empire structure. When he moved toward the center of the room, others fell silent out of respect. "I have studied the humans extensively," Ixil-Canthi said, his voice soft but carrying clearly. "They are unlike any species we have encountered in our expansion." Holographic images appeared around him, scenes from Earth's history. Throughout their development, humans have engaged in constant warfare with each other. Not orderly conflicts with clear objectives, but chaotic, total war. While we evolved toward efficiency and hierarchy, they evolved to thrive in disorder and continue fighting despite overwhelming odds. The images showed ancient battles, modern wars, and finally, the current conflict with the Empire. Most importantly, Ixil-Canthi continued, humans do not recognize defeat. When conventional forces fail, they shift to unconventional methods. When governments fall, their people continue fighting. They have a concept they call resistance that has no translation in our language. The council members watched silently as more images played. Human civilians taking up arms, sabotage operations, guerrilla tactics. In our history, we have always assumed that rational beings surrender when victory becomes impossible. Humans do not share this perspective. They would rather die fighting than live under control. Grand Minister Vex Moore stepped forward. "What are you suggesting, Elder?" Ixil-Canthi's expression was solemn. "That for the first time in our history, the Empire should withdraw. Not negotiate from strength, not offer terms, but simply end this conflict." Outrage erupted from many council members. The very concept was alien to Empire thinking. "Silence," Vex Moore commanded. "Let the Elder finish. Our projections show that defeating humans would require committing over 60% of our military resources for an extended period," Ixil-Canthi explained, "during which time many subject worlds would likely revolt. The Empire as we know it would end, regardless of whether we eventually defeated Earth." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. 3 days later, an unprecedented directive was issued to all Empire worlds. Do not engage humans in warfare. Maintain distance from Earth territory. All military operations against humans are suspended indefinitely. On Earth, the first peace delegation from the Empire arrived without demands or conditions. They requested only direct talks with human leaders. President Wilson met them in neutral space, aboard a station orbiting the moon. "Your species has accomplished something unique," the Empire representative admitted. "You have forced us to reconsider principles we thought universal." The peace treaty that followed recognized Earth and its colonies as fully independent. Several formerly subjugated worlds were also granted autonomy, creating a new balance of power in the galaxy. In the Empire's classified archives, a final intelligence assessment was filed. Humans possess a quality we cannot counter. They do not know how to lose. They transform defeat into renewed determination. They fight not just with weapons, but with an idea that spreads like contagion, that freedom is worth any sacrifice. The document ended with a simple warning that would shape Empire policy for generations. Do not fight humans. You may win every battle and still lose everything that matters.